This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
You're listening to Beyond Bossfights, gaming conversations with interesting people. And now, here's your host, Raxwolf.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 13. Beyond Bossfights started in January of 2014. That would make this episode the 1-year anniversary extravaganza. Yeah, thank you very much. What we're going to do today is a little bit different than normal. What I've done is throughout the course of the last year, I've compiled all of the outtakes from the various recordings of the 12 previous episodes, and we're going to kind of air them today just as a celebration of the 1 year of Beyond Bossfights. So if this is your first time listening to the show, know that it's not a normal episode. If you want to listen to some in-depth discussions on MMOs and video games, I would suggest starting with episodes 1 through 12. But if you've been following along for any period of time, I think some of these outtakes are going to bring back a few memories from the podcast in the past, and hopefully will demonstrate how things can go wrong or things can go off the rails, or how much editing actually takes place before you listen to an episode of the show. We're going to start with technical glitches and go all the way back to episode 1 with Andang, where we had a Skype issue that got us off to a roaring start in episode 1. All I can say is thank goodness for post-processing.
You may not know this but from listening to us in the past, but Andang and I are actually kind of different generations. Suffice it to say, without giving too many specifics, I am old enough to have a child in junior high school, and Andang is young enough to be still in school. So again, thanks for being here, Andang.
Yeah, you just completely cut out through that entire thing. I could not hear a word you said until thanks for being here, Andang.
That's okay. I think it still recorded me. We'll find out. I basically just talked about how we're of different generations.
Yeah, I heard something about junior high. That was about...
That was my child. My child is in junior high.
Okay, just making sure.
You know, I've learned a lot of things over the last year or so, and one of the things that I learned was if your guests are seasoned podcasters, don't try to explain podcasting to them. I don't really know what I was thinking here.
And by the way, just this is obviously going to post-production, so I can edit out anything you want me to. Just let me know.
We don't do that.
I'm not worried about it.
No. We're going to be your best edit ever because you just leave it all in.
It's all gold.
It's all gold. Ah!
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
I learned that sometimes your guest just can't find the right word, especially when it's not her native language.
How about the other way for guys? Are there gender stereotypes for guys playing games?
Oh, definitely. I think from you have the guys that are where from my point of view at least, and maybe from many women's point of view, you have the guys that are what is the word? You have the guys that are the PvMPers, like the buffed up macho, here I come.
I learned that a lot of times it's the host that can't get the words out. Yeah, so in your opinion, kind of getting back to gaming a little bit, Sig, you touched on this already. Wow.
Just 3, 2, 1 in, you'll be fine.
Sometimes you're just like, I have said that word 8 million times in my life. Why can't I say it in front of the microphone? Okay. I learned that W.C. Fields was right. Never work with animals.
This one's a little deeper into the maybe the future of the gaming industry. And my dog's got a squeaky toy. Hey, go. Get out. Go. Give me 1 second, guys.
No problem.
Go. I shut my door, and then my youngest came in to see what I was doing, and he left the door open, and the dog, of course, brings his squeaky toy.
And never work with children. So, one of the things that... Just give me a second, Roger. Good night, hon. Sleep good, okay? See you tomorrow. Could you close the door, please?
Okay, Bailey,
And take the dog. Yeah, take the dog out.
Bailey, come on out. Come on.
Go on, Bailey.
Come on. Come in, Bobby. No, mommy? Mommy?
Go on. Go on.
Come on.
Thank you. She was supposed to be in bed half an hour ago.
Children and bedtimes, it's a very elastic time.
And so you can see a very conscious decision on the part of the developers to try and... I don't know how you want to do this. Did we just edit this part out?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
If you think you can pick up around where you were, that's fine.
I have no clue where I was now.
Hungry. Can I get a snack?
No, you get more dinner.
Chips and peanut butter jelly sandwich?
Okay. Come on, give her peanut butter and jelly.
I forgot what I was saying.
Okay.
Gosh.
That's fine. I will find a good stopping point for that. You were on a roll, but...
I was usually on a roll. I usually feel like I talk too much.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, yeah, if you don't mind giving me a minute, I'm going to go make her something.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
I'll be right back.
Today we have with us B-Dog. Little B-Dog or Big B-Dog, however you want to say it. What have you been doing today, B-Dog, and what's your plan for the rest of the day?
Probably, like, I'm really looking forward to eating pie. And yeah, I'm like a pie eater.
You know, I have some friends on Twitter that would really like you. They're really into pie.
Good.
Because they're descended from hobbits.
I believe that.
So you're going to eat some pie today? What's going on? What kind of pie are you going to eat?
Apple pie.
Are we going to have apple pie later?
Probably.
You know what we forgot? We didn't get any ice cream.
We can make a quick run.
We may have to. You can't eat apple pie without ice cream.
That is true. Can't do that.
The other voice you hear is Loco Wolf. He's busy playing Minecraft, so he's not really participating except for on the periphery of this conversation.
Minecraft.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, I'm building Ender Portal.
I talked about it when it was really quiet, so...
Yeah, we did do one test run, didn't we? And it didn't turn out.
Nope.
Yep.
So we're not going to talk about Minecraft because we're tired of talking about Minecraft.
Yeah.
How dare you? Minecraft's awesome. I'm building a room.
So
you like pie,
we're talking about... Oh, yes, folks.
Folks.
Yay,
That's a new word for my vocabulary.
All right, say goodbye on the...
Bye, pie.
But most importantly, don't ever, under any circumstance, work with either one of these guys.
Adjust my stuff here.
I'm now recording, just to let you know.
Fart. Oh.
I'm now starting over.
Oh, if it wasn't funny, you'd be sad.
Final Fantasy XI, which was the first online Final Fantasy, and played the hell out of that, if I can say hell. Heck. Oh,
I think hell's okay.
And okay.
You might have overstepped with later.
So I played the hell out of that, and
on to our main topic.
Women.
Not women.
Oh.
Today we're going to be talking about MMO barriers to entry, and I know I've experienced some of these.
Women problems.
Again,
not problems, and
again, not a topic on the show. That is not. That would take. You know how many hours we would be talking. Anyway.
Oh man.
And I wouldn't release that one either. There's no way that would go public.
Oh, I love you, Cola. Cola, cola, cola. Let's do this.
The last thing we really haven't touched on yet is
women. Can't wait. Come on.
She really did break me that time. The timing was perfect.
I know.
Oh, good Lord.
Okay, get your bearings.
Oh, man.
Let me go get something to drink real quick. Hold on.
Okay. Okay, now I gotta get back on track.
Oh, yeah, get you a tissue. There you go.
And I also learned that you get some of your best stuff after the conversation's over and the recording continues. Why did I stop recording so early?
See?
Yeah.
I could have given you theme music and you wasted it.
I completely did. I should learn. You know, this is something about being my third episode. By the fourth one, I would have known. Keep it rolling until everything's over.
And it was hard for me. When I first started doing the show, and I think people that start doing things like that, especially like, I don't know about like talking in front of a crowd, but just getting up and talking to maybe just a couple of people. When you explain things, you have to elaborate. You have to, explain it all out. You can't be very short, especially if you're entertaining, people. A short answer is just like, and that's how I was. I actually very believe that the best answer is always a short and clear answer, because I made card games, I've made board games, I've made all kinds of different games in my life for my friends and family, and writing out instructions and rules and stuff like that, I've always found that if you keep it simple, people understand right away, what they need to be doing, and I just kind of took that on into my life. So when they asked me, like, okay, Leonor, they're changing things in the PvP area of this game, and we're wondering what your opinions are, and I'll say, well, I don't like it. So it took me quite a while to actually get myself up, and I call it the gift of gab. This is what we talked about that one night, when you just get yourself up and you can talk about things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need an example, the example is just this whole entire podcast of me talking right now, talking, elaborating, and explaining, and so people can understand and they know what you're talking about. And it's taken me a really long time to get to that point. I had to get a bunch of candy bars and Mountain Dew and soda and stuff just to get myself up to the point to even say, hey guys, how's it going this week? In the beginning of the show. That's how rough it was for me at first.
Right.
And after a while, after getting all those sugar highs, I'm at the point where I could just put myself there, and I could put myself, push the envelope a little bit, and boom, I'm in the show mode. And it feels good to be like that. So am I off topic?
It is. It's interesting. I must admit, tonight's discussion has actually got me thinking about some other things, because I was thinking to myself about the greatest asset of any community is its people. The greatest liability of its community, of a community, is its people, and the fact that wherever you go, you always get little social dynamics and things. Because it was Easter, I was with my son and my ex-wife, and I went along to her church because I used to go there fairly regularly, and it's a nice church with good, decent people, but for me, the thing that's I find a little bit disheartening is it has sort of slightly degenerated into just a little social group and certain people's little empires, and I just find that so dispiriting, because that's exactly what a church should not be.
Yeah.
But I hear that a lot from a lot of people and a lot of friends. It's just, it's a risk that happens, within church communities, within political communities, within things like the fishing club. It's just people, isn't it?
It is, and I think there's an aspect of, how do I want to say this? It's very easy to focus on the wrong thing. And I think that your church example is what kind of brings that out to me. And it's the same in a gaming community. Everybody really has the same end goal in a gaming community, and that is they want the game to thrive and survive and do well so that they can continue having fun within the game. It's the dissension comes about when we disagree on how that should happen. But when we start looking at, again, we're looking at the trees, all of a sudden there's no forest anymore. Our focus is potentially in the wrong place. Maybe that's why we're getting so agitated with so-and-so, because we stop seeing the common ground that's there. We start looking at the differences of opinion more. Not to say that we can't have differences of opinion, but I think people really take that personally sometimes,
I think society, Western society, in the last 20 years has lost the ability to agree to disagree. Mm-hmm. We've got a very much a sort of all or nothing sort of mentality now to anything from as trivial as, do you want a soda? What one do you want? Oh, I don't particularly care for that one. Why are you drinking that? You must be an idiot. It's like all of a sudden something innocuous has become a point of argument, because people just don't seem to be tolerant of disagreement, particularly disagreement over fairly minor things, and I that worries me and bothers me a lot.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Should have put that in the podcast as well.
Did I hit everything?
Yeah, I think so. I was going to say the first episode that I remember that sticks out in my mind that you were on, I think it was one of the early ones for you, was when you played the Meow game.
Meow.
Yeah. And that was I kept thinking this is insanely hilarious to me, but I have no idea who this guy is or where he came from. I'm like, all of a sudden he's on Lotro Reporter doing the Meow game.
That is my second episode. I told my kin, which is a guild in Lord of the Rings Online. I told my kin, I said, hey, I'm going to be on Lotro Reporter again. And I might be there for like 3 weeks in a row because Chris is not feeling very good at all. So is there anything that you guys want me to talk about? Is there any questions that you guys would like to hear on a show, where people are talking about Lotro? And one of them said, I dare you to say meow 20 times during the show. I said, I'll do it.
I'll take that.
So, yeah, it was a very entertaining episode, and Chris and Bill really dreaded it.
That took a lot of guts, I'll tell you. That was what I was thinking as I was listening to it, was this is hilarious, but I would never have the guts to do that, especially on my second time.
I kind of took it. I think that kind of helped me a little bit break the ice for myself as well.
Yeah.
So, and look where I am now. I'm doing Lotro Reporter. I'm doing MMO Reporter. Thanks to the network has taught me to do videos and live streaming stuff. So I'm doing some live stream videos. I'm trying to do my own Let's Play on YouTube now, and I feel good. I feel confident when I'm on the microphone. I'm not to the point where I stop stuttering or saying or. But yeah, it's crazy. I just raised my hand one day and say, hey, I'll help. And that's where I am now.
And it brought you to Beyond Bossfights.
Yeah. A show I helped name.
And in some ways inspired me to try. So.
Oh, I was on you like, oh man. I was like, dude, get a show. Okay, I'm done.
There's also some great moments that just can't make it into the episode because of the length of particular episode. It's kind of like Peter Jackson having to cut out some of his favorite scenes just to make sure the movie's only 3 hours long.
A huge high point. We did an actual live show episode. I think it was 75. We went to a comic convention in Chicago, and we filled a room with this, fools, I call them. No, we tricked an entire audience to watching our panel, and we filled the room. And there were the other panels that were going on were some pretty significant panels. So we were shocked that we actually had a full room.
I am glad you brought that up because I was planning to ask you about that in the course of the conversation, and it slipped my mind. I actually was doing a little bit of searching on Late Night Steamer a few weeks ago when we were getting ready to do the show notes for this podcast, and I came across those photos, and I went, "Holy cow! They did a panel at a conference?"
Yeah, it was a comic and anime convention in Chicago, and that was the only time that almost all of the hosts were all together at the same time live, and we met each other. A couple of us met each other for the first time that weekend.
That had to have been a really cool experience.
Oh, it was, because I hate to admit, we were adults and we're just walking around this hotel conference just drinking, and it's just a bunch of kids running around in anime costumes. So we just had a blast sort of hazing them. And our live show was fantastic because it was tailored more towards just stupid gag gifts and give outs. And we talked a little bit about Steam, but it was fantastic because instead of giving away games to our live audience and a chat channel, we were giving away physical objects to people that we could, reach out and hand it to them. But some of our gag gifts were hilarious. We gave out a jar of Nutella. And we gave out a couple Steam gift cards. And there was this one girl in the audience that got a $25 gift card, and she traded it for the girl next to her who won the jar of Nutella. And I look back at that and laugh. I'm like, only in our audience would somebody give away a $25 Steam card for a jar of Nutella.
It's just interesting that you were able to have the chance to get that type of very personal interaction with your audience, which a lot of podcasters and bloggers never have that opportunity unless they're super successful. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and that was probably the closest we've came to where I look at some of the very successful, and usually they're just networks, like the MMO network or, some of the other huge networks where they actually send them out to PAX. They have a booth or something, We really were toying that line of, hey, do you guys want to go to this convention and let's actually plunk down $300 and rent a booth, We got to that point.
Taking that approach is not necessarily uncharted territory for Lord of the Rings Online either. They've invented entire regions that weren't even really mentioned in the books, but must have been there because there was a blank spot in the map. It's kind of filling in the things. What's interesting to me is that we talked before about the games that kind of formulate their own lore as they go along. You can see the same thing happen with, I'm going to throw out Star Wars and Star Trek books, which we're going to talk about later, kind of filling in pieces of the story that we don't know and weren't officially part of the movies or whatever brought this story into popularization. But what would the reaction be to the lore purist community if somebody was to say, okay, this stuff that was established in Lord of the Rings Online, the video game, let's treat that as canon part of Lord of the Rings lore. That would be really interesting.
That has already somewhat happened, but not with Lord of the Rings Online, and the uproar was huge. When Shadow of Mordor was being marketed, one of their developers was going around saying that this is totally canon. Shadow of Mordor was totally canon. And either he's misspeaking and he means to say that it's consistent with canon, which it's not.
It's neither.
But the way the quotes read, and nobody came out after the fact to say, no, he misspoke. The way the quotes read is him saying, no, this is canon. That you can take this with the same weight as you will take the story of Frodo Nine-Fingered and Samwise the Brave, or you can take this with the same weight as the story of Beren and Luthien, or the Fall of Gondolin, or the Ainu Lindale, and stuff like that. And I was extremely vocal about that because, to me, and this is one of the reasons why I will always prefer the books over the movies, even though the movies are the ones that introduced me to the books, and that's an argument for another day. But to me, that's very dangerous when you talk about introducing new people to the Legendarium. Okay, I guess I will talk a little bit about the whole movie thing. Take, for instance, the Hobbit movies. If you were to take your kids to go see The Hobbit and then put the book in front of them, they're so different from each other that the book is going to be set to the side because it's not as action heavy as the movies are. You don't have, barrel riding dwarves surfing down, shooting arrows at orcs and stuff, getting shot in the leg, trying to rescue the girl or whatever. You just have the hobbits and the dwarves riding down the river in barrels.
Mm-hmm.
And so, someone like me who watched, the movies first, I was introduced to Tolkien through Fellowship of the Ring in theaters. And then I went home and read Fellowship of the Ring, the book. Then I watched The Two Towers, then read The Two Towers. So nothing was spoiled, nothing was ruined for me. Take someone in middle school right now trying to pick up one of those books after just watching that movie. They're not going to like it. Well, in the same instance here, you have a video game developer saying that their game is consistent and it fits and it is part of that established canon. Well, where's the book on it? Where are all of the other references to it within the other books? That kind of thing doesn't belong. And especially in the case of a game like this where it is so brutal and you have such... It was referred to as a murder sim, and it's very consistent with that because that's really all you're doing is going around killing orcs, okay? And that is not something that you really saw. Yes, you have battles against orcs and stuff. You have major battles in the Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion and such like that. But you don't have vengeful spirits trying to go back and just murder everybody. Okay, if that's considered lore, if that's considered canon, what else are we going to allow in that is totally something that you can think the professor himself wouldn't have written? I don't know if that answers your question, but the uproar about, with that one quote was enough to get many Tolkien purists, to even stop following the news about the book, about the game, because they just couldn't reconcile that. Now, like I said, I had already seen the game in action. I had already resigned myself to buying the game, but I don't put any stock in the story whatsoever as a result, because I'm still, every single time I get to an instance in the game where I don't like the direction they're going story-wise, I have to remember that this guy said that this was canon and I'm supposed to, treat it the same way I would treat Frodo going to Mount Doom.
The TGEN Spotlight Show of the Week this week is Massive Failure by Joseph over at MMOtroll.com. Now, Massive Failure is a podcast where Joseph gives his unfiltered opinions about games in the gaming industry. Unfiltered, unsolicited, but a lot of times right on the money. Here's Skank the Troll to give us a little bit more information.
This is Skank the Troll. Master says listen to Massive Failure. Master says if you do not listen, I must watch Justin Bieber videos. Do not make Skank watch the Bieber. Listen to the Massive Failure podcast at MMO-troll.com or on the Gaming and Entertainment Network at tgnetwork.net.
So we didn't have any feedback this past month, but as always, we'd love to hear your feedback on iTunes, or you can send your feedback to braxwolf@gmail.com and I'll read it on the podcast. Remember that Beyond Boss Fights is also on Stitcher, so add it to your playlists. If you'd like to get in contact with me, my Twitter handle is Braxwolf, that's BRAXWOLF. My email is braxwolf@gmail.com. You can find me on anook.com/Braxwolf, on Facebook, facebook.com/Braxwolf. Got a few YouTube videos out there, youtube.com/Braxwolf. And of course, you can always visit my blog at braxwolf.com. Wanted to thank everybody for being a part of this past year of Beyond Boss Fights. Thanks for listening to this episode. Thanks for downloading all the previous episodes for the last 12 months. Looking forward to some interesting things hopefully coming up in the next 12 months. Maybe even a couple things I'll be able to announce on the next show. To close us out, I'm going to go ahead and include the story of the birth of Beyond Bossfights, as told by myself in a conversation with Leonor after the show recording was over. So I hope you enjoyed this look back at the past year, and I'll see you next time.
See, I told you had something. I told you. You're like, I don't know. I'm like, just do it.
Now
you know that.
Now I will
just do it.
Let me tell you something right now. I'm not going to include this in the feedback section, but I do want to say something because, and I didn't really blog this when I first started Beyond Bossfights, but this is kind of the way that it came about. January, I think maybe 1st or maybe it was late December this past year, 2013. I'm sitting in a Barnes & Noble and walking around with my kids. They're looking around at stuff to spend their Christmas money on or something like that. And I get this message from Leonor on my, I think I was using an iPod Touch at the time because I had their free Wi-Fi going. And it said, "What are you going to do this year with podcasting?" Mm-hmm. And that's basically all it said. Mm-hmm. And I think, as Leonor does, Leonor walked away from the computer for another 4 hours after that. Because I didn't get anything else. But that was the only thing I got from him, and it just started the gears turning. And as I'm sitting there on Christmas break, I took some days off, obviously, around Christmas, which is always good to kind of recharge the batteries and get you thinking of some new creative things. I started thinking, what could I do with a podcast? Mm-hmm. And I started to kind of I started to realize that I had actually been kind of thinking about this in the back of my mind for a very long time, and I already had a lot of the pieces figured out how I would like to do it. Mm-hmm. I just never had that like final push that said, go try and make one. Right. So getting that question, I think it was a Skype message or something like that. Getting that question was the one thing that was like, you should really just try and put one out, just one episode, see if you can do it, see what it's like. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, everything just kind of fell into place right after that. And and then Beyond Bossfights was born out of that one Skype message that I got. And of course, I wouldn't leave you alone. I was like, well, what are you going to do now? I know. What are you going to do? When are you going to do it? Because you did say something that you were kind of considering thinking about doing some type of show on your own. You just didn't know what. Right. And yeah, that's when I gave you the message a little bit later. I'm like, he hasn't said anything. Just let me bug him about it. And I was perfectly happy doing Lotro Players. I still love doing Lotro Players. It's a completely different experience just to hop on and do that podcast as opposed to this one. But that was something that was like, yeah, that would be something that is just all my own, that I could do from start to finish. And it could be just mine. I could put my stamp on it, and if people want to listen to it, that's great. If not, I can say, hey, look, this is my podcast. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was really cool, and I thank you for that. I don't know if I've ever told anybody that story before outright. I think I alluded to it in the blog post where I launched the podcast, but I don't think I went through that amount of detail.